Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Tending Lilith's Fire. I'm Kohenet Matan, and I'm here with my co-host Kohenet D'vorah Grenn. And we are recording on March 19th, the day before the Spring Equinox. And we are talking, at least starting our conversation with an acknowledgement of the energy shift from Pisces season, which has felt like slow, very emotional, plodding through water, to what some of us can already feel is coming with our shift into Aries, fast moving, energetic, powerful, push, go, go, go. And so we pulled a card just to find our way to the essence of our topic today, and D'vorah pulled first, so I'll let her share what came, and then I went and found the same card in my deck, so we can talk about the nuances of this energy and what opportunities it has for us. Oh, and
yes,
I want to say we are having this conversation in Lilith's name.
Thank you. She thanks you. And I'm only going to identify this from the tarot of the cat people, 8 of Wands, because I'm still learning the tarot by a long shot. And you're really much more familiar with some of these suits and readings. But we did talk about it as representing everything speeding up, and the caution in that to not be too impulsive, and ways of doing that. And so we were talking about trusting intuition, you were saying, and heart-made decisions as opposed to mind decisions, which are often driven by what we think we should do.
Yes. So I'll share. So this is the Next World Tarot, 8 of Wands. And so 8 of Wands has a real sense of speediness. And we, gosh, I don't know about you, but I'm very excited to feel speedy after having felt very slow and in need of rest for a while. And I'll mention, if you're on if you follow me on Substack on the priestesshood, my last post was called Slow Down, which was a channeled message about this very thing from Pisces season. So I'm so excited to have some energy for movement. And what came up, as D'vorah was saying, is about impulsivity. It's like, yes, we're free, let's go. And then we may encounter just this like knee-jerk desire to make decisions from our head and our mind, and move quicker than we give ourselves an opportunity to process appropriately or integrate appropriately. So we wanted to offer this invitation and just say, yes, we can celebrate the shift towards movement and energy and feeling energized again as we come out of winter into spring. And you may think that we're meant to make decisions with our mind, but in fact, this is not so. Our minds are for analyzing and synthesizing information, but we're really meant to drop down into our intuition in our heart space, or depending on where your intuition lies, whether it's in your heart or your gut or your spleen, or I'm into human design, which, sacral, splenic, emotional are the most common. But either way, none of them are from the head. And that when we just slow down and bring the information down into our intuitive space, we get a deeper sense of knowing and alignment in the decisions that we make. And I was listening to Pam Gregory's astrology recently, and she's on YouTube, and she was saying, we're going to be asked to make a lot of choices this year, and we really want to make sure that we're making those choices from our intuitive body, really.
And I think especially now, as we're coming out of not altogether, but partially out of the lockdown situations, I think there's a great desire to rush forward back into the life we had a year ago, at least parts of it. I can't wait to get behind the wheel and get down the highway and see my family and to go to the beach. And not all of those things or any of those things are warranted yet. It's still going to be at least another 3 weeks till I can do that. And so, but I sense that kind of impatience also in my surroundings from people that I've been working with and meeting with. So, yeah. And I have to just say, even though the energy may have been still plotting for you, when you put out that note about slow down, I took a breath. I was so happy to see that. It caught me at a moment where probably I had a day-to-day of, back-to-back Zoom meetings. And yes, that was my response immediately. I loved seeing it. So I think for some of us, that's always timely advice.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. And we are on opposite sides of the continent and in different countries. So I'm in Toronto, Canada, and D'vorah is in California. And here we're still in lockdown. And I believe as of today, that lockdown has been extended again. We were hoping that the status of lockdown would be downgraded. I haven't double checked, but what I read yesterday was it was likely to be formalized and continued. So while I'm watching on the news, many places in the world are opening up and are getting the opportunity to move and feel freedom from that energy. In Toronto, we are not. So I'm feeling some jealousy as I hear how close it is for you.
And we are still, we're still red, not purple tier, but we're still red down on the peninsula in the South Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area. They've gone to a tier down and have even fewer regulations. So in our area, it's 25% occupancy that's allowed in restaurants, for example. But we had to go out on an errand yesterday and we both agreed that we still don't want to do that. Don't want to be in a closed space.
Right. And it makes sense for you to choose what feels safe and comfortable for you based on your situations and your risk factors.
Right.
Those options aren't even available here. So, I guess some stores are open. I don't want to spend, to be honest, this is not what I want to talk about. But like the energy shift, I really recognize. I hear you.
And I was just thinking as you were talking about this, how does that affect how you will apply this energy shift that you're feeling? And if you are indoors, you've been doing a lot more creative projects lately and crocheting your beautiful creations and painting. And I'm wondering, I've seen around the people I'm in touch with, other people here, that that has been one positive result of sheltering in place, that some of them are getting much more creative, opening Etsy shops with things that they didn't have time for before, because now they have time. And some of us are writing more. So, we have found benefits, and I understand the frustration, and we want it to be over. So, but go on to what else you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and we were talking, so there's that conversation came out of the impulsivity, right? And the desire to just do what you want to do without necessarily being really tuned in and intuitive about what's in right alignment. So if we come back there, another piece of what's come up a bunch in readings and this energy is, so Aries is the new year astrologically, and it's in alignment with, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, I don't know if this is true in California, but here on the East Coast, it's birthing season, right? It's spring, it's new green, new life. We certainly have that in the Passover traditions. And so there's been a lot of asking questions about what can this birthing be like, and what have the stories about birth been about and been like in the past, and how do we want them to be now, and not taking for granted that just because the story of what birthing has been like, in our traditional narratives, like, oh, it has to be hard and lonely, and just to say, like, wait, actually, in the Passover stories, this is also a very important story about midwives and support. And so was telling D'vorah that I saw a meme last week that a man put out about this is the time of birthing and labor hurts like hell. And I responded, I love when men, to be clear, he's a cis man, make birthing analogies. And that my own birthing experience when I birthed my daughter was powerful and felt powerful and supported. And so what if this birthing experience that we're going through collectively could also feel powerful and supported? And what would that look like? And how do we embrace the Aries energy that can really help us move? How can we embrace that and not feel like we have to push and not feel like we are pressured, but rather that we are being invited to move at our own right pace, asking for the support we need and getting it? And what can that look like?
I think one key piece of that is not being pressured, but being allowed to do it at our own pace, because otherwise we do start to contrive models and create things and projects and whatever that conform to someone else's idea of success.
Yes. Yeah. And externally created systems that maybe were created for efficiency and not, when I think about like the healthcare systems around birthing and the industry around birthing, I know when I was, taking the hospital tour, and I birthed my daughter at home, but we took the tour just in case so that I would feel comfortable. And, we learned that like they keep you in triage as long as possible so that you don't take up space in the room, and then they get you out of the room as long as possible. And there's a set, this is at least at the hospital near me, and they also set a timer from the time that you go into the room. Like if you're not progressing at the pace that they would like, then they start advocating for cesarean section to just move the birth along and get you out. And that's not about the pace that is right for the birthing person or the baby. Right. That is about the pace that the fairly corporatized medical system finds efficient. And so if we're thinking about our symbolic births, we absolutely want to really tune into like, what is the pace? What is it that I'm birthing? And what is the pace that is right for my body and my nervous system? And I will share this card. So I've been pulling cards for some reason or other for the last 3 weeks. And I've been doing the Sweet Love spread from the Netivot Oracle deck by Kohenet D'vorah. And in each one, the first card in the spread is the Sweet Love that supports you. And in each one, I've gotten a womb-related card. And this week, it was the Cosmic Egg. And what this makes me think of, now that it's been a few weeks, last week was the Journey of Love. 2 weeks ago was the Journey of Love deck, is that we are both the birther, like what are we birthing into the world? And we are in gestation, about to be birthed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So just to think about like what in us is being renewed and rebirthed in this season. Who do we want to be in this fresh start opportunity? And what do we want to be midwifing or birthing and bringing into the world at this time? And just that invitation from the Eight of Wands is to be like, yes, we have the energy to do it. And then we have the invitation to be intentional about how we do it.
Mm-hmm. And that makes me think, listening to you talk about planting seeds, that next stage that you're talking about, and how do we allow, and do we allow ourselves that kind of space? And if not, how can we? For example, my dreams are important to me and interpreting them. And that is an incubation space at times, of course. And if I don't have room and space and time to sit with them before I put my feet on the floor and wake up so too much, become too conscious to remember details, then something has to shift. And so I actually right now need to find some other ways, maybe an afternoon, sleeping for 20 minutes, sometime without the cats, because as much as I love our new kittens, they wake me at 6:30, they wake, or whenever sunrise happens. And that is often when I'm in that liminal state. And so it's gone. So we have to find ways to do that. I want to come back to something also, because you mentioned nervous system, and we were talking about standing in our own power before we went started broadcasting and then recording, and pushing through. You had a strong opinion about not necessarily pushing through things that are out of our comfort zone. Do you want to go back to that for a minute?
Yes. Okay. So we were talking about, well, it was you who brought something up about getting into our place of power. There's something about overcoming, and I was like, but I want to make sure.
About pushing through shame and embarrassment, and I think you were saying,
oh, this is about
do that until we heal. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we had a whole conversation before we hit record as we were trying to find our way to what we wanted to share with you, and so we picked up from our vulnerability conversation from last week,
right.
And we were talking about the need to overcome our embarrassment about feeling our feelings, or really about expressing ourselves and using our voice publicly. And I was saying, yes, we do need to get past that shame and embarrassment. We do need to be using our voice. And some of the cards that came up definitely speak to this. And it's not and that's where we're not powering through or pushing ourselves to somehow overcome this conditioning. We want to acknowledge that there is conditioning there, and that there's been harm, and that there was trauma when we used our voice, whether in this life, probably if you're a woman, if you were raised as a woman or a girl, you probably encountered silencing or harm at times when you stood in your power. And so there's work to be done there around compassion for that inner child and nervous system, so that we can just be present with the ouch and heal that, so that we can find our way into our powerful voice, again, in alignment and from a place that feels healthy and whole, rather than that pressure and push, like, why can't I do it? Then we're judging ourselves. Like, I understand that other people silenced me, but why can't I unsilence myself? And to say, it can be, for some people, it can be as simple as making that choice. And for many of us, there's the desire and then the need to bring compassion and healing to the parts of us that are still feeling the ripple effect of that silencing.
And to identify that, as you say, and not assume that it's a lack in us, but to realize that the conditioning was that we were to behave well. And in my case, that meant often being silent, swallowing my own opinion, or certainly any dissenting opinion to the majority of my parents, and especially my father. And so there is that piece. One other thing just occurred to me, and that is, I think it's something that women really have to support other women doing, because I think if a woman is very aggressive or assertive at work or in any group setting where she may be dominating the conversation, it may be because she was never heard. And we have to find ways to tell each other, and to find that we each take up the proper amount of space, and that we have maybe a little compassion for those who dominate a space, at least one time, until we can have a conversation with them and explain that we need to have balanced energies, let's say around a table, around a circle, whether that's, a personal circle or at work. Harder at work, probably, because people have a lot to lose and they have another mask that they're wearing very often.
Well, I want to challenge those systems, and I want to say, like, I hear you about, having compassion when someone is taking up extra, like, is taking up all the space. But I want to challenge the system so that there's not a sense of too much, so that everyone, so we're shifting the expectations to make it possible for those who have lots to say to create opportunities and containers for all of it to be said, rather than this idea of there isn't enough time, there isn't enough space for everybody, so we all have to sacrifice a little. What if, instead of sacrificing, each of us holding back, we redesigned those experiences so that everyone could come fully forward? and be celebrated in coming fully forward.
I completely agree. And the problem is that often if somebody takes up that much space, those who are a little more timid or shy shrink back even more. So yes, the new systems that we are, I think, in the process of creating, and probably have been for a while, is to make room for those voices as well, and to make that very clear and transparent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like it's necessarily a collaborative process where those who are, who are having an easier time being outspoken, then they turn and invite the ones who are feeling more timid to speak up.
Yeah.
And the ones who are feeling more timid can look to the ones who seem to be more easily and readily embodying that large power, and look to them as models for what's possible for them too. Because the more the timid ones speak up, the more the model shifts.
Yes.
And I think we've been shaming the ones who talk a lot. I'm one of those, and I've experienced a lot of, a lot of silencing and shaming. Like, oh, you talk too much. It's too easy for you to talk. You need to step back and make room for others. And that was sort of the old. And in other environments I've been in more recently, it's been good for you for speaking up. You make space for others to speak. You model that it's possible for others to speak.
Beautiful.
So, we want to encourage the timid ones to see what's possible when the loud ones speak, and encourage the loud ones to say their piece and turn and make room for the timid ones to join in.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, about the workspace thing, like, I have been there, and I want to rip it apart, honestly. Like, I have a colleague, Gladys Rowe, who is an Indigenous woman who's teaching about decolonizing education and decolonizing in corporate spaces. And I'm like, yes, like, I know she's not alone in this work, but a big piece of that is how those spaces are held, and how the work gets done, and just saying, like, is this really the best way to use everyone in the room? Is this really the best way to cultivate the outcomes we want? And I can't wait for those teachings to be more pervasive, and for our like traditional corporate style workplaces to be dismantled, those methodologies to be dismantled.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will throw in one thing we talked about that I wasn't going to talk about today, but in terms of changing those workplaces, one really important piece is as we were talking about expressing emotions and feelings, and when is it okay, when isn't it okay? And of course, we know that the only real emotion men have been allowed, at least in this culture, is anger, and that we are, if not punished, dismissed or othered for showing a range of other emotions. And I was in a corporate meeting once where I was expressing righteous anger about a situation, and was told by my boss, almost like a there pat on the head situation. I was told, don't be so emotional. Oh, you're getting upset. And it was a situation that a man would have easily shown anger about. There was an inequity, and it's obviously stayed with me a number of years, because it was so off balance, and such an imbalance of power. And that's a subject I know we're going to address in a future episode.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you for bringing that here, because we mentioned it. We were like, let's talk about this. And you're like, no, I'm not ready. Here you are bringing up, gender dynamics and power in the workplace. And you mentioned, like, the only emotion that has been typically available to men, that has been validated as available to men, is anger, but not women. No, women are not allowed to be angry. Men are only allowed to be angry. And let's call that old paradigm. We don't want to claim it for the present or future, and just say, like, if that's happened to you, I want to say, whether you're a man who has felt like the only way you could express yourself was to get mad because grief or sadness or anything tender was not allowed, or if you're a woman who was only allowed tenderness, and even probably not, only sadness or grief, and probably not even that, but certainly not anger. I'm sorry that I feel like I can speak for both of us and say, we're sorry that happened to you. And we're invested in having these conversations so that we can call those dynamics out and make them no longer the norm. and talk about how do we transform those patterns for ourselves, for those we serve, and for all of us going forward.
Yeah.
May it not be so for our children and our children's children.
Indeed, indeed. And we would love your comments on this on the YouTube channel, to hear from you in any form. Yeah.
Yeah, please tell us, where have these issues shown up for you? And because it's likely that this video will appear after the equinox. So we'd love to hear, how did you mark that transition, that equinox transition? And if you want to share with us anything about your encounters with vulnerability and emotion, with claiming your power, with what you're birthing, there are lots of opportunities to share with us what's been going on for you. And if you feel comfortable, please do comment right here on this video on YouTube. And if you're not comfortable there, you can always send either of us an email. Our contact information is on the About page.
Right.
So, is there anything else we want to say before we close today?
Not for me today. How about you?
Okay, well, I just want to say, wherever you are in this equinox turning, I wish you a happy turning, a happy and supported turning and birthing. Yeah, I feel like that's the important. Happy, supported, and powerful birthing and turning for all of us.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Oh, and please, if you like this, click the like button, subscribe, share it with anyone you think would be interested. We'd love to build our community here, and we need you to help us do it. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.